Guys are all right. Okay, good morning. Before we get started, right in the Q&A section where you are zooming or connecting in from today. I am in Des Moines, Iowa, where last night we had to bring in our plants because we're supposed to get some freezing weather tonight. How about you, Kayla?
So I am in Columbia, South Carolina, and we just started getting into like the 40s in the afternoon, but we're supposed to start getting some warmer weather. We kind of roller coaster with our weather. We'll probably hit some more 80 weather, again before we hit freezing.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, I see Andrea, thank you from Brighton. George from Colorado Springs, fabulous. We got Sandy. Hey, Sandy from Wilmington, 80. Oh, I'm jealous. Jason from Henderson, Tennessee. Yeah, we should have gotten the weather forecast. Okay. Christy, 27 degrees in McCook, Nebraska. Great to hear from you guys. I see some familiar names and some new names. And another good question is anyone going to be watching football tonight? My grandson is a junior in high school, and they have made the playoffs, but unfortunately he's injured. So I don't know who's more bummed, I am or he is, because he's like a horse along the sidelines. Put me in, I want to play. All right, Chuck, I see you're from Charlotte, and it's beautiful, 65 and sunny. And I really like fall. I love the colors. I wore kind of the colors of the season. Kayla, you've got some colors going on there too.
Yeah, got my fall colors coming on.
You know what? We kind of coordinated green and orange-ish.
Yeah. Didn't even mean to.
No.
I love it when that happens, though.
Mm-hmm. I do too. And you're gonna fire up the PowerPoint for me, right?
You should be able to go share the file so that you can have control.
Mm-hmm. So you want me to do it?
You can share.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Yeah, for those of you who know about technology, it works when it does, and it wants to. So we want to make sure that it's working properly today. And are they able to share their screen if they have a chance to have video?
We can't do video. We can only do the audio on these today. Sorry about that, guys.
Nope, no worries.
Awesome. And there's your PowerPoint. And just real quick, guys, before we get started. So my name is Kayla Williams, and I am the project coordinator here at JER HR Group. And I just wanted to go over some quick little tips for using Zoho because, as we've entered this huge age of technology and especially during the pandemic and post-pandemic, we've seen this huge bump in various systems that were kind of like Zoom and Google Meet and now Zoho. This is very similar to all the above. So on your screen, you should see a little control bar at the bottom. And you'll have access to, there's like some little buttons where it'll have 3 little dots. You can click those settings to change your layout of your screen. So you should be able to move us around. I think there's 2 or 3 options that they have now to change the layout of your screen. You should also be able to see the Q&A. where you'll be able to talk with us, ask any questions that you have. And then there's also a little emoji that has a smiley face on it, and those are our reaction buttons. So feel free to use those all throughout the presentation as well. So as we continue forward, if you have any questions about utilization, if you have any problems with your Zoho, feel free to put those over in the Q&A, and I'll address those as our wonderful Miss Michele Matt presents. And so at this time, I will hand it over. Go ahead, Michele.
Great. Thank you, Kayla. And let me make sure that they are practicing what you just taught them. How many of you are excited that it's Friday? Let's give a reaction just to make sure you know where that button is. I got a thumbs up. Oh, yeah.
Look at those. There they are.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Because today we are talking about the 7 strategies for highly effective culture. And in order to be effective, you must be engaged, whether we're in the same room or from across the country. So thank you, Kayla. I'll thank you in advance for helping make this technology work. A little bit about myself, and then I'm going to get into the topic and tell us a little bit about JER HR Group. I have been a consultant now for 3 years with JER HR Group. Prior to that, I owned my own company, Inspiring Solutions, for 30 years. And I primarily work with organizations with people, which basically means any organization who has the dynamics of people interaction and teams and organizations is really been fun, engaging, rewarding. And when I partnered with JER HR Group, we really take a look at how comprehensive that organization has become. JER HR Group believes that human capital is your most important asset, your people. And we have been consolidating organizations for the last 5 or so years. And these are just some of the stats. I won't go through them all, but I really want you to just understand that basically we are a comprehensive organization that can help you with your organizational development, which is where my book of talent lies. We help you with your compensation, evaluation. The Learning Hub, we have Trainery, which has a variety of programs available online, as well as some HR services. So payroll audits, some of you may have participated in previous webinars. In fact, let me get a reaction. Give me a reaction if you have attended or participated or even presented in a webinar in the past. And, oh, that's great. So we've gotten several. Good. So we do these programs, these webinars once a month for a variety of different reasons. And it's a way that we can showcase the variety of different products and services. And on the right-hand side, it talks about the talent management technology. As Kayla said, we've really gone to a hybrid organization, not only at JER HR Group, but the workplace in general. And so whether you want on-site or online resources, we also have a talent management technology that has over 5,000 different courses, 50,000 users in 7 different buckets of solutions. And we're currently serving over 300 clients. So that's a little bit about JER HR Group. Feel free at any time during the presentation to jot in any question. I'm seeing that off to the side, and I'm here to stay on afterwards if you have any additional questions. So Bill Gates believes that we all need people who will give us feedback. That's how we improve. And I really think that Microsoft, along with other very successful, innovative organizations, have learned to not only seek feedback from its ultimate customers or users, but internally from its employees. What we're going to cover today is the type of different feedback tools that you may have used, the psychology of both giving and receiving feedback, and what might be a fear or of the value of seeking feedback from others. We're going to then move into 3 different types of workplace culture. We're going to do a poll. Well, we're going to ask, what kind of culture do you feel you're currently working in? And then I'm going to introduce to you our fairly new tool. It's been out for a couple of years called the Culture Index Survey Process. It's beyond just a survey. It's really an engaging process to help you in a very short, very systematic approach, learn what matters most to your employees. And then as a result of participating in today's webinar, we've got a special offer that we want to give to you. If you're running out of paper to take notes, there will be a follow-up email that contains the recording of this webinar along with some specific information that you might be able to learn more about what I've talked about. So Peter Drucker, management guru, said the greatest danger in times of turbulence, which we've been in since the pandemic, is not the turbulence itself. It is to act with yesterday's logic. You know, my brain oftentimes thinks, okay, that was before COVID. And I think we have to realize that the way we did business, the way we interacted with people, the way we interacted with our customers, our employees, has changed, and we can't rely on old practices for our current culture. As I mentioned, there are some factors going into feedback. In fact, while I'm talking this through, what I'd like you to do out in the Q&A is I'd like for you to write down what kind of survey tools does your organization use. It could be externally, it could be a customer or a patient survey. It could be an internal tool like a employee engagement or satisfaction survey. But I'd like to get an idea while I'm talking through this of what kind of tools or resources have you used. And there is some guidelines. When you're giving feedback, one of the things that you want to make sure is that you do it in person if at all possible. If you are a manager, if at all possible, have those conversations, not only during the performance review, but on an ongoing basis with a person versus through an email. Declare your intention. Today, I want to talk to you about your work that I've noticed over the last month. And it could be a summary of what you've noticed, both what have they done well from a recognition perspective, as well as what you'd like them to improve or how you could help them. And give specific examples. I'll use Kayla, for example. We spoke yesterday, and Kayla, one of the things I really appreciated was you to help me understand how this platform, Zoho, compares to Zoom, because both of us are familiar with Zoom, and we thought maybe many of you would have been familiar with the using of the Zoom technology, but not familiar with this technology. So I really appreciated how you kind of compared the two platforms. And then from the standpoint of offering suggestions and corrections, we brainstormed a lot. In fact, after our powwow yesterday, I sent off a message to our senior team and said, after we go through this year's webinars, let's do a debrief and take a look at what kind of feedback we've been getting from our end users as well as our presenters, and make plans accordingly for the next 2024 webinar schedule. Now, when you have been given feedback, you want to make sure that you are willing to offer help and support. And a lot of us aren't prepared on how to receive feedback because we become defensive. So we have to be receptive to constructive criticism. You know, it may come across as negative, but realize that when someone gives you feedback, they want to help you. I always say that they're giving you a disguised gift. A compliment is great. So too is a complaint, because it's an opportunity to make an improvement. Take the time to process it. You know, maybe you can't react to the information right away. So when you hear it first, you might say, you know what? You have some points. I need some time to kind of talk through what you've covered. Can we come back and visit this tomorrow? And then be willing to grow, because that's really why we coach others. That's why we give feedback to others, because we want the organization, we want the team, we want the person to improve. And unless you're perfect, we all make mistakes. Own your mistakes and move forward. Don't defend, just acknowledge. In fact, I really intended to get the PowerPoint to Kayla yesterday, but my day was crazy. So I apologized to her first thing this morning, and we went forward, and here we are today. And be thankful for the feedback. And so I think that we can only improve when people trust us enough to tell us what we need to improve our relationship. Another one of my favorite consultants, the late great Stephen Covey, who wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, believes that it takes humility to seek feedback. It takes wisdom to understand it, analyze it, and act appropriately on it. And so you can only gain from feedback. However, there is some psychology behind feedback. When we get feedback, and let's just put yourself in a management position, you've asked your employees for feedback. There's a fear that nothing's going to change. So an employee might not take the time to fill out a survey because they've done it before and nothing's ever happened. Or they're afraid if they give feedback to management that things could be worse. They might even lose their job. So, or it's a waste of time. Why do something that no one's going to do anything with? However, organizations that we enjoy most working with are those that and get fired, those that realize they can learn and benefit from the knowledge. It validates that they're doing things that are appreciated, and it can help redirect or change your strategy. It builds trust because when people have a voice, they feel closer to you. And when they feel closer to you, they feel more comfortable in confiding in you. And that, again, ultimately builds trust. It promotes engagement. People don't necessarily quit jobs because of a situation. It's typically because that situation doesn't involve them. And so if they aren't a part of change, they will oftentimes get disenchanted. And ultimately, the last value of getting feedback is that it strengthens the relationship. And that's true whether you're talking about a customer or an internal employee survey. So here are 4 stats, and I would love for you to react to these. Would you agree that finding and keeping great employees is one of your greatest challenges? Negativity in the workplace deteriorates morale and reduces the bottom line. You know, they say one bad apple can spoil the bunch. Would you also agree that when you improve employee engagement, you'll also improve customer satisfaction? Press Ganey, who does a lot of surveys for both patients and employees in healthcare organizations, has done a correlation. And if you improve employee engagement by 1%, you will increase your patient satisfaction by 2%. And that is also conversely opposite. So if you have low morale, low engagement, that's definitely going to affect the patient experience and thus lower patient satisfaction. And like I said just a little bit ago, employees don't quit jobs. They quit working within unhealthy cultures. So they may quit or they may stay. Another topic that you may be familiar with is that quiet quitting. They may have quit, but they haven't left. They just aren't applying themselves anymore. So it seems like from the reactions, we've hit some nerves here. So what is culture in the workplace? Culture is the way things are done, or it's how you feel when you come to work or when you walk into an organization. You know, I think of retail operations like Starbucks. Starbucks definitely has a culture. They have a culture within their employees. My granddaughter works at Starbucks. And as not necessarily a frequent shopper, but I do appreciate the customer experience at Starbucks. You definitely have a specific feeling or reaction when you're at Starbucks. So today, what I'm going to challenge you with is to think about how you would describe your culture? And we're going to do a poll after I talk through these 3 different types of cultures. The first is that of control. A culture where there's a lot of control is when management feels as though they have to oversee performance and typically will help, if not make, decisions. And as a result of that management style, employees become very dependent, as if they almost turn off their brain, their creativity at the door, because they're not asked, or if they are asked, they oftentimes don't have the influence or ability to make decisions. The second type of culture is that of abandonment. When I think about hiring practices, especially in a tight labor market, organizations often hire someone and then they feel as though their work is done. They go back to the business as usual without giving them the proper onboarding or orientation or guidance in the first 90 days of the relationship. And as a result of that experience, kind of a laissez-faire management style, employees become very independent. They kind of just do whatever they want to do. There's really not a lot of controls in place, if you would, kind of the opposite of the previous culture. And they're left really to make their own decisions. The third culture is that of collaboration. Cultures that have an understanding of their talents, skills, knowledge, and abilities make better use of their teams. So in other words, they rely on the talents of their team to get things done. And as a result, employees realize that they can't do it alone, whether they are working in the office or they're working in a hybrid environment or completely virtual. They use a lot of different types of communication. So with that definition, I'm going to ask Kayla if you would launch our poll.
All right, everyone should see the poll popping up right now. And the votes are coming in.
Oh, awesome.
Let's see, we'll give them just a second to roll in those votes.
Would love to get at least 50% participation.
Oh, this is wonderful. It hasn't even been a minute and we have about 71% participation.
That's awesome.
If anyone else wants to throw in some votes. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and publish these results.
Okay, thank you.
And you should be able to see those right in the poll.
So that means that if you go off to at least on my screen, I went off to the side and where it has at the top, the attendees, chat, Q&A, and polls. If you select that poll tab, you'll be able to see the question was, how would you describe your company's culture? By far, the most votes came from collaboration. Awesome. It looked like 37% said that it was collaboration. The combination followed with some control, some abandonment, and some collaboration, some control, and then very few had abandonment. So that's great. Thank you. Love how technology is working. So let me give you the definition of collaboration. It's when 2 or more people or departments work together to produce, create, or achieve something successfully. And by doing so, it takes cooperation, teamwork, cohesive leadership. So all of leadership needs to be on the same page. That causes mutual respect for each other's differences and appreciation for work. Peter Drucker said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. You could have a great strategy or strategic plan, but if your culture doesn't embrace it, doesn't understand it, doesn't hardwire it into the fabric of the organization, it's just a document. So what we want to do today is talk about the 7 qualities of a collaborative culture. As I said, my work has been in organizational development for the last 30 plus years. And as I look at the best practices of organizations, they tended to align with these 7 characteristics. The first is that of clarity. By clarity, I mean that you have goals that are set and achieved based on and aligned with the mission, vision, and values that are identified in the organization's strategic plan. And the way that you determine that or put those in place is to make sure that you have a current, dynamic, agile strategic plan. You have mission, vision, and values that everyone knows. In fact, a couple weeks ago, I started working with a new organization, and they admitted that their mission was too long because no one could say what it was. Job descriptions that are current and up to date and reflect that if you have gone to a hybrid organization, what does that look like? What are the expectations? You have a communication protocol. Communication protocol is how is it that you behave or interact when you have meetings. You know, one of the things that Kayla and I talked about was, does this platform allow participants to use video? Because I really believe that that should be an important protocol when you're in a meeting. You know, for instance, internally, when JER HR Group has meetings, we require that everyone shows video, because who knows, if you can't see what they're doing, you can't tell if they're engaged. And then finally, another best practice for cultures with clarity is that everyone within the organization understands its products and services, which is one of the reasons why we showcase our diverse products and services, our solutions, if you will, not only for our clients to know, but also for our internal employees. The second, and feel free if you have any questions to jot down, or if you have any other best practices that you want to add to the Q&A, change the tab to Q&A and then just simply type them in. The second quality of a collaborative culture is that of code. You'll see that they're all going to start with C. Code means that you are in the process of hiring, firing, and managing performance that honors a consistent standard of behavior. And the way that you do that is, first of all, you have a solid hiring and selection process. You know, and that starts with how you recruit. Are you able to use a recruiting firm? Do you have consistent processes for interviewing? Do you use human resources for the screening as department managers, and maybe even peer interviewing as a part of the process? And then once hired, like I mentioned, you can't just let them in the door and set them free. You've got to have a very specific orientation process. That is what I consider, how do you orient them to the organization? How do they learn on day one, what is this organization called JER HR Group? You know, what are its different components? And then the onboarding process is when you look at specifically your department in which you work and who are the players and what is expected of you within your department. And that process should be very specific over the first 90 days. We have a client that designed it it was a virtual organization, and they had a very specific expectation of the first week, the first month. And it was it was checklist driven, and it was self-paced, but there was checkpoints that the manager had. What are your standards of professionalism? And what does that look like? What does that sound like? Do you have a handbook? That's something that if you want to have our assistants, JER HR Group would be happy to help you either write it or help update it. And then also, as you all know, DEI is very important these days. And so do you have and do you articulate your diversity, equity, and inclusion statement? Those are signs of a solid code within a culture. The third quality is creativity. That's when employees are empowered to offer their suggestions and share new ideas. They have a voice. And some imperatives for having creativity in the workplace include using some type of problem-solving protocol or methodology. I love to use things like PDCA or PDSA, which stands for Plan, Do, Check, or Study, Act. Some of you might be black belts or green belts or yellow belts. That represents lean. There's all kinds of different methodologies that you can employ. We also help organize workplace teams cross-departmentally so that they can look at not only breaking down the silos, but they can implement process improvement using the talent and knowledge of their leaders and frontline employees. Today, we're going to talk about a tool that we've created that helps to monitor employee engagement through a process. Some of you may use employee satisfaction or survey tools. And then, as I mentioned, from a feedback on a customer experience. So do you often, and give me a reaction, how many of you do use some type of survey for whether it be for employee or customer satisfaction? And then the last item is that of job shadowing or cross-training. Okay, great. I've got one reaction. Oh yeah, good. Lots of reactions to that. And then the last way that you can employ creativity is to help people understand what other departments or job descriptions or job performances do. So whether it's on Groundhog Day, you can have some fun with job shadowing, spending a day watching somebody do their work, or you can have maybe as a part of career ladder, cross-training. So that is the use of creativity in the workplace. The fourth quality is that of consistency. To what degree do you implement proactive behaviors on a regular, consistent basis to promote a desired outcome? And those best practices are done consistently. You know, in healthcare, for instance, it's 24/7. And I oftentimes will challenge those that work on the weekends or in the evenings to make sure that employees deliver the same experience to patients who come through the ER in the evening or on the weekends. And even if you were to go to a fast food restaurant, it's important to make sure that they have that same Chick-fil-A experience, hearing the words, "My pleasure," at the end of a drive-up experience on Monday or Saturday, which I've given you a couple of best practices. One way to make sure that you have consistency is to make sure that your policies and procedures are up to date. You have service scripting, like I just illustrated, that Chick-fil-A, oftentimes after a dining experiences, will say, "It's my pleasure." HR audits. Some of you a couple months ago may have participated in our webinar about the good, the bad, and the ugly experiences with the HR audit. How many of you, just again, a reaction, were on that webinar? Regulatory compliance. Again, these are things that you can do to make sure that you are compliant with not only federal, but state regulations. And then the last is, these are just examples, is to make sure that you have some form of accountability and feedback. It could be as simple of having employee performance reviews done. We also help create dashboards. Dashboards are used to identify critical measures of an organization and department success. That's measures that you can use to monitor your success throughout the year. So that's consistency. The fifth imperative for a collaborative culture is that of coaching. An organization supports its talent to help achieve a specific personal or professional goal by providing training and guidance. In fact, next week, I'm going to be doing some work with an organization that wanted some training on leading a multi-generational workplace. And the research now shows that the new millennials want a culture of coaching and development. They want and expect to be coached, and they want to continue learn in their jobs. So do you have a mentorship program? Do you provide talent development for your organization, your individuals, your leaders on a regular basis? Do you have in place a performance management system that on a regular basis revisits your job description and sets goals and monitors on a regular basis, not just annually, but on a quarterly basis, how employees are setting and achieving their goals? Do you have and do you use a progressive discipline process? I know as a manager, this is one of the difficult parts of your responsibility, but no different than a parent. You owe it to your talent to let them know that they're not meeting expectations. And using the philosophy of coaching, not disciplining. In fact, I think the policy could be called progressive coaching process, because I think it's really under the idea that you want to help them succeed, but you also need to recognize in baseball, 3 strikes and you're out. And if you have done everything that you can as the manager to coach them, provide the tools, you are depleting your time, their time, and you are frustrating the team if you don't successfully terminate the employees that aren't a good fit to the organization. And as you find employees are preparing to retire, are you using their talents in creating a solid succession plan? The 6th quality of a collaborative culture is that of conflict. How does your organization provide managed and a healthy conflict resolution? Because I believe it's not a matter of if, but when you have conflict, how are you dealing with it? And so it's a part of your interpersonal relations. It's a part of team building. We oftentimes will use the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team to help people understand that in order to have conflict, you have got to have vulnerability-based trust. And so through a very dynamic experience, leaders and departments and intact team will understand how to make conflict work for you, not against you. From that, the 3rd behavior of a collaborative or a healthy team is that of productive conflict. And so we learn how and why we respond to conflict in the way we do, and what we can do to manage and confront others in a productive manner. You wouldn't be here if your organization or if you aren't going through some type of change. Change is more internal, and we react to it externally. And so I'm in the midst of changing my address, which means I'm in the process of moving from one address to another. And I've lived in the same house for 18 years. And I believe that we should move more often than 18 years because we accumulate stuff. And as a part of letting go, you are prepared to get again. And so I feel like I'm churning, but I know that in the end, the change is good. It's just that transitional state is kind of chaotic, which can be time management and stress management. So there's a lot of factors that influence your ability and your cultures to manage conflict. And then finally, the last quality of a collaborative culture is that of celebration. And I think that's probably something that we need to do more often. It's how often do you recognize and reward individuals, teams, and organizational success? Factors influencing that include your service awards. In fact, my daughter was just recognized at their annual awards banquet, recognized for 10 years of service. Do you have retention awards or incentives? Do you have an ongoing recognition process or wows that you can give to fellow coworkers to thank them? It's really just a sophisticated way of appreciating. A little thing, but we oftentimes use emails and we don't use snail mail for communication. When was the last time that you sent a birthday card or an anniversary card to one of your employees for their term of experience or their contribution? Do you have some fun with employees in all employees activities? Do you have picnics? Do you have activities? Maybe even have an activity committee that can help plan some of those activities or events. Compensation reviews, that's something that one of our divisions can help you with to make sure that you're staying current with the marketplace, and build in performance incentives and bonus pay for retention. So those are the 7 different qualities. And then as a result of that, during the pandemic, I helped along with some of our teammates to create a survey tool, because we really felt as though we needed to connect in with our organizations. And so we created a very simple tool called the Culture Index Survey that you can see aligns with the indices, and 7 standard questions that are asked using a 4-point scale. It could be administered, most likely we've been emailing them, but it could be done through paper to all employees, coded by department, using the 7 standard questions that can give feedback on the 7 qualities. But we also allow each client to add 3 custom questions. The 3 custom questions could relate to anything that maybe they've been working on over the last year. We had several wanting to find out about the hybrid, working from home. It could be about a policy. It could be about a future change. And the joy about this is it takes less than 3 minutes to complete. We did our research and found that 20% of people abandon surveys if it takes more than 7 minutes to complete. How many of you have recently stayed at a hotel or rented a car or bought or rented or stayed in a hotel, bought a car, and were asked to fill out a survey? And if it's too long, we abandon the survey. So some examples of some COVID-related questions. I'll just give you one example. I'm satisfied with my level of stress, health, and well-being, because it was really important to tune in to how employees were feeling when they were working remotely. Company related, like I said, could be one client wanted to check in on a project that they launched about new employee orientation and onboarding. So they wanted to ask specifically for feedback. Then once created, we go through a 4-step process where we design collaboratively with a design team. What are the questions? We then administer the survey, gather the data, and then present it back to leadership, and then present it to each of the departments for feedback. And then once we get that feedback, we engage the employees on explaining more specifically why you responded the way you did, and then offer some suggestions for improvements. So what I want to do is kind of give you some samples of what the format of the reports look like. This is an aerial view of what the 7 questions would look like. And using a stopgap analysis, using color-coded, any score from 1 to 2 basically is low, 2 to 2.9 is moderate, and green reflected a high probability of consistency, using the scale of 1 never, 2 sometimes, 3 usually, or 4 always. Then, as a result of the overall, we can also dig deep into each of the departments. And so from an alphabetical perspective, we illustrated from acute care on down on this list to radiology, and how they fared in not only the 7 competencies or collaborative indices, but for each of the 3 questions. And we hope that an organization feels transparent enough to understand how their department compared to other departments. And you can see again from the color coded that home health was green all the way across the board. However, there were some factors, some areas like long-term care that were struggling. And so at a glance, you could identify as an organization, where were some of your hot spots? Then we went into a feedback session for 1 hour with each of the different areas. And we asked basically two questions. We shared the results, and then we asked for what is it that you appreciate about the current situation, and what are the suggestions for improvements or needs in each of the different questions. And so we did a lot of flip charting, and then those flip charts were then created a report. And then those reports were given very specifically to management, and then management were to share the results and create an action plan. And so this is an example of what a feedback session and report looks like. For instance, as I mentioned, we'll go through each of the 10 different questions. The first index is culture. And so we start by making sure that everybody in the feedback session knows what the definition is. We give them what that particular question looked like. So in this particular department, you could see that there were some scores range from 3.09 to 3.25. And through their feedback, through their comments, I captured what they appreciated. One thing that they appreciated about clarity was they knew what was expected, and they also expected to have their role being very dynamic. So which meant that they understood that it could have multiple facets and change very quickly. Then the second question or part of that feedback was to offer suggestions. And so we also asked them to share what would you like to see differently or improved. And so they identified that the admin's role wasn't as clear as they'd like it to be, and validated when it was changed. And they wanted to see the big picture. They needed a company-wide, either an org chart or structure for helping to manage priorities. Another interesting statistic from Leadership IQ said that 59% of human resource executives admitted that their organizations took no action or only easy actions based on employee engagement surveys. And so I have always believed that the value of the survey is the language and the conversation that you have thereafter, which basically means that it's a process. It's not just a survey. You can't just check it off that you do surveys on a regular basis. You've got to make use of it. So for you attending this webinar today, we want to offer you a discount to give you an opportunity to use it. And it could be, if you've never done an employee engagement survey, it would be a great first start. If you do an annual, or some of you might do biannual surveys, this could be a pulse. You could extract some of the areas from your survey that you wanted to improve as your 3 custom surveys. So we could do it, we could build it out for you however you'd like it to be, using those 7 standard with 3 options. And instead of being charged $25 an employee, we're going to reduce it to only $20 for employees. If contracted by the end of November, so that gives you a chance to kind of show and tell about the tools, and maybe even watch the video of this webinar that you'll be receiving. And we'd like for you to be able to roll this out by the first quarter. So not to say that it has to be done by, but at least launched within the first quarter, because we know we're coming upon the holidays, and holidays tend to be busy. So we're running shy on time, but I want to thank you for participating in our webinar. My information is there on the slide. It'll also be included in the follow-up email. I want to thank not only you for participating, but Kayla, we couldn't have done it without you. I think you need to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can.
Sorry about that. Yes, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate everyone for being here. If you have any questions or concerns, if you respond to any of the emails, they will come automatically to me. And if Michelle's information is here. Thank you, Michele, for presenting today. This has been, I swear, every time we do a webinar, I learn something new every day here. It's so magnificent, and you did such a wonderful job. Thank you, Michele. And I hope everyone has a wonderful Friday leading into the weekend, and happy Halloween.
My pleasure. Happy weekend.